with all the troubles that have gone throughout the weekend, for Lewis to come out and do the job he did, it is exactly like Damon was saying in the commentary. The guy looks like he's been around for 10 years already, and if ever there's a world champion that's deserving of it to be, then Lewis has to be the guy.
And from the McLaren point of view and Ron Dennis's point of view, whatever happened yesterday, he must be mighty proud of this driver.
Oh, he has to be proud. He has to be proud of his team. He has to be proud of all of the people contributing to this win. But they will still be an evaluation of what did happen throughout this weekend, because really, Steve, they should have had two McLarens, first and second. That is for sure.
Well, Lewis has come through some tough battles in the last few weeks and some tough experiences as well, but he's back on the top step of that podium. He's back as a winner once again, and we'll get all the analysis and all the reaction of Lewis Hamilton's victory in this Hungarian Grand Prix in just a few minutes.
You led every lap from the pole. An amazing day for you with Kimi Raikkonen right behind you, giving you pressure all the way.
Yeah, it's been an eventful weekend and quite emotional, I think, for all the team. And, you know, we made a really good step forward. The team have been working so hard to improve the car. And we came here with a great package, and still weren't sure whether it would be ahead of the Ferraris. But obviously you could see in the race they had great pace. Quite early on in the race I had, well, in a second stint I had a problem with my steering. Don't really know what that was, but it made it quite difficult to keep the pace. As you can see, I dropped off a little bit and I was a bit nervous that something was going to break, but thank God it didn't. But I was told by the radio that everything was fine, and so I just had to keep on pushing. I can't really hear anything. Yeah, and you know, Kimi was on my tail for quite a long time, and so pushing right to the last lap. He drove a fantastic race, really enjoyed it, but it's good that we're back at the top after an eventful race at the last race, so good.
Can you be a bit more specific about the steering problem, and then talk a little bit about the difference between the two tyres? Obviously you had the softer tyre in the last stint. Kimi was very, very near you there. It's a question of the graining perhaps and the tyre cycle.
To be honest, I don't know what was wrong with the steering. It was just steering a bit to the right, steering wheel. So we have to investigate that. But with the tyres, you know, the first stint was very good. We had great pace, very consistent, and I was able to keep pushing and improve my time. And then we went to after the first pit stop, again, same tyres. But I struggled at the beginning. I had great rear end traction, but it was pushing into understeer. Plus I got a lot of traffic. So Kimi was able to close the gap, and I think he was a bit lighter than me as well, 5 or 6 laps, so which I knew. So I had to manage my tyres, knowing that in the 5 laps extra I had, I really had to pull out the gap, in which I did, I think. And he came out quite a bit further behind than he was. But then the option tyre, I was really, or the softer, super soft tyre, I was very, very impressed, because during the weekend we thought the graining would be too bad, and so bad that we would slow right up. I think Kimi was slightly faster there, and with the problem it was tricky, but I just kept pushing, never give up, and just kept pushing right to the last lap.
Well, difficult to remember. Of course, you're still a rookie in your first season with all that pressure throughout the race with Kimi behind you. Just talk us through the mental approach you had from the start right through to the end.
Well, you can imagine, as all the drama that's gone on over the weekend, it would have been easy to lose focus. It's been a bit of a downer on the team, but the great thing is the team remained positive, and you know, the energy in the team still remains, and it just proves that there's nothing that can stop us. So with that in mind, I'm able to get in the car and do my job, and obviously I know how to win races. I've experienced having Kimi up my tail a couple of times this year, especially in Malaysia. So I think with that experience, today was a slightly easier, but still, nevertheless, it was a hard race.
Congratulations to you, Lewis.
Thank you.
Kimi, I guess you know every square centimetre of the back of that McLaren now, the whole race behind him. There were moments when you were right there and you looked to be slightly quicker on the road.
Yeah, I think so. On big enough race, we knew that they're going to be quick. I expect them to drop out a little bit more, but they didn't really suffer as much as I was hoping. But I could close up and just stay there. But the problem in here, especially when the two cars are very close, is the other guy on the front needs to really make a big mistake to give you any chance to get past. So it was kind of boring race, just driving behind and waiting something to happen and try to push us hard to make him a mistake. But nothing happened, so we really finished where we started. So.
How difficult was it following in his wake, in his turbulence, in terms of tyre and aerodynamic performance?
For sure it makes it a bit more tricky, especially in one of the fast corners, 11 here, but maybe not as bad as some other circuits. I think so the downforce and the grip here seems to help a bit, but for sure I have a very good car today. If I could have been on the free air, we could have had very good pace, but we couldn't really use it, so it's not really...
Well, as Lewis said, and as you've now said, an encouraging day in some ways, given that Ferrari were concerned about these high downforce circuits and particularly this track, and you were right there with the car today.
Yeah, but that shows in the qualifying that we could not really use our car as we want. We are not quick enough in qualifying these sorts of circuits, but in the race pace we were, I think, so better even. So. For sure, when we go back to normal circuits like Turkey, our car should be pretty good there. So we try to do the best what we can there, get some points back, and it's going to be hard. But there's many races to go. One bad race, and things can change quickly. We've seen that this year already.
Thank you, Kimi. And Nick, congratulations to you. Your third place here at the Hungarian Grand Prix, second in a row, and a three-stop strategy for you. An interesting choice and a very strong race for you onto the podium.
Well, actually, for us it was clear quite early in the weekend that we would go for a three-stop, knowing that the option tyres could be difficult for a longer stint. On top of that, we wanted to start pretty much in the front for the race, so we qualified a bit lighter in Q3, but as we've seen, it worked out.
And how was the option tyre as it turned out?
It was quite good. Actually, I would say we expected that. That's why we made the last stint relatively short, with not such a high fuel load, which helps the tyres. On top of that, circuit was rubbered in quite well at the end. And I also tried not to push them too hard in the first couple of laps to make sure I don't get bad graining, especially with Fernando behind. As the corner affected the most always was the last corner. And that was the most important corner for me, to be quick there and keep him behind.
Yes, well, tremendous pressure from Fernando Alonso up there trying to get the podium place from you. What was that like from your point of view? Where did you feel he was quicker than you?
I think it was a bit quicker everywhere. At one point, probably 7 laps to the end, I thought he backed off a bit. But I know that with Fernando you can never be sure. Actually, at this point, I tried to pick up the pace a bit again, because there was a back marker in front of us that was pretty quick, and I didn't want to get close into his dirty air, and with then Fernando being behind me. And then in the last 1-2 lap, he tried to push very hard again, but as we know, it's not so easy to overtake here in Hungary.
A fantastic result for you. Well done. Lewis, just returning to you, a certain irony in the weekend, I guess, by your own admission. You did change things a little bit yesterday in Q3 in terms of the team strategy, and you ended up on the pole and you won the Grand Prix. You didn't get the fastest lap, but you won the Grand Prix. An ironic day in some respects.
Yeah, I don't know really what to say about that, but all I know is I think today, with some of the problem I had, it probably made it one of the hardest races I've ever had to do. So in terms of, it's even more satisfying now that I had to push that bit extra to keep Kimi behind. And but just to get the points, it's so important for me, and I think for the moral of the team, to show that we have the pace and we can beat everyone.
He's got the points and he's proved a point in the most effective of ways. The third victory in the Formula One career of Lewis Hamilton, his debut season, and he leads home Kimi Raikkonen and Nick Heidfeld. Fernando Alonso tried everything to force himself onto the podium, but settles for fourth ahead of Kubica, Ralf Schumacher, Nico Rosberg and Heikki Kovalainen. And it all means that Lewis extends his World Championship lead over teammate Alonso back to 7 points. Kimi Raikkonen moves above Felipe Massa into third, but is still some 20 points adrift of Lewis Hamilton, who remains the World Championship leader. And Mark, listening to Lewis in that press conference and hearing the problems he had with preserving his tyres and some steering problems as well, it just really adds to the admiration you have for him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously Lewis had a problem there, and he refers to it as a steering problem. What that may be, but anything to do with the steering for sure is going to be a difficulty to drive around the circuit lap after lap. And he did it without any problems and made no mistakes. And again, you have to take your hat off to the guy. He's a young man, first season. He's winning Grand Prix, and there's some guys behind him who have got far more experience and with World Championship titles.
And to lead every lap of a Grand Prix, it's the first time that's been done for some 30 races since, I think, China at the end of 2005. What sort of concentration does that require?
I think any driver, when they win a race, the best way to win it is flag to flag. And a flag to flag victory means so much more, because there is no one on the circuit that ever is in front of you and ever is the possibility of getting by you, and you feel so strong about that. And that will just, again, give confidence to Lewis. He goes into the next race bigger and better than what he was.
Well, the key to that was the start he made, and it was also a pretty good start from Kimi Raikkonen.
It was a great start from Kimi Raikkonen, but Lewis Hamilton, he got off the line very cleanly. We expected the McLaren to be strong. Alonso was the guy who actually had a lot of problems, because he tried to capitalise on the start and take some people, and he got squeezed out and knocked him a couple of places back, and that really was the downside for his race, Steve.
And from that point on, he was really defending, so crucial for Raikkonen to get ahead of Nick Heidfeld, and Alonso really rather trapped.
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty for Alonso was he had to try and maximise the first corner opportunity, and unfortunately for him, it just didn't come off. He got off the line there clean. He then gets himself a little bit tight, tries to go down the inside, just has to get on the brakes and think about this. He doesn't want to get caught up in anybody else's mess. But at the same point, a couple of guys run around the outside.
The difficulties that Lewis had, he had a couple of moments of crisis, apart from the technical problems that he referred to in the press conference there. A couple of drivers leaving the pit lane gave him a bit of a scare.
It's always a difficult situation when you've got a driver coming out, and this is Sato. He comes out the pit lane. To be perfectly honest with you, Sato hasn't really much he can do. He's got to come out. He's got his own race to do. Maybe they could have given the communication to say that Lewis is coming up, but heart in your mouth situation for Lewis Hamilton. He locks a brake, just goes in the inside there, and he's very close to even hitting Sato there in the Super Aguri. He has a little bit of a gesture, but one of those situations you come across.
How nervous were you getting on behalf of Lewis during the course of those final laps as Kimi got closer and closer and looked set to mount a challenge at one point?
He did indeed, and I think he got within half a second, Lewis Hamilton, at one stage, and we felt that all of a sudden the softer tyre running on the Ferrari was the quickest option, and lap after lap it truthfully was. But I think Lewis Hamilton had it all in hand. I think it was a little bit more left if he needed it. He just wanted to put that race behind him and make sure he could save it.
Where does that leave Ferrari, I wonder? I think we can get some thoughts from Mr. Domenicali down at the Ferrari pit. And I think it's Ted Kravitz who's putting the questions.
Well, Stefano, Kimi showed he more or less had the same performance as Lewis, but just wasn't able to overtake here. Is that the situation as you read it?
I mean, for sure, as you know, and as you've seen here, it's almost impossible to overtake. There were a lot of traffic all around the track. Also, Felipe was stuck in the middle of everywhere, so difficult. For sure, the disappointing that we haven't got the points that we wanted to achieve. But we have to be positive, because now we go back to track where we should be more performant, and that's the way it is. I mean, we need to work and keep pushing, because the tension can make a big difference up to the end of the championship.
Yeah, how come Felipe wasn't able to move up at all throughout the pack?
I mean, as you know, here is almost impossible. You see that we were stuck behind Sato for a long time, and also when Kimi was in the quickest lap that he wanted to attack, because Hamilton was there, he was there and difficult to overtake. So that's the Formula 1 of today.
And the stewards said that they received a request to clear up what happens with the Constructors' Trophy on the podium. Did that request come from Ferrari?
Not at all. We are interested in our situation, for sure. But it was pretty clear, to be honest, without asking any clarification, in my view.
What, pretty clear that McLaren wouldn't be allowed up to collect their trophy?
No. I'm speaking about the points.
Okay, but the fact that McLaren are allowed to go up and collect their trophy, that wasn't a request that came from Ferrari at all?
I didn't know about it, so for sure not.
What is your reaction to that, Mark? Is that taking politics just a little bit too far?
I don't know whether that's part and parcel of the regulations, or whether they just feel that, because there's no points allowed to be scored, then the manufacturer shouldn't have any presence on the podium. Maybe it's not justified. But again, it's difficult to really understand all of the situation that's gone on. And until we know all the facts, and I'm sure actually we never will, You know, the guys inside the team, what's gone on outside the FIA stewards, they've made their decision. That's what counts.
Kimi Raikkonen's race today, 20 points adrift in the championship now. Took second, but it gets to the point in the season where he starts to need a bit more than that.
Yeah, he needs more than that, but there's tracks coming up which I think will suit the Ferrari. But you have to say, I think Ferrari and Kimi Raikkonen will be actually quite happy with coming away from the Hungaroring with this second position. And they had the pace, and I think that was a surprise to a lot of us. Ferrari was a little bit off colour all weekend, but when it came to race pace, very strong. As close as he could get, it just wasn't close enough. And I do feel that Lewis maybe had a little bit more left in the bag if he needed it.
What about Fernando Alonso's race today? Were you surprised that he got stuck for so long behind Ralf Schumacher?
In consideration of the pace of Lewis Hamilton, I was quite surprised about that. I thought he would be a little bit stronger and make use of that performance advantage with the McLaren and get by Ralf Schumacher. But again, one-line circuit round here, aerodynamics, always going to cause problems.
The unluckiest man in Formula One, and we've said it the last few races, but he's making such tremendous progress. Anthony Davidson. And he was out of luck once again after a terrific qualifying performance and what was turning out to be a pretty good race as well.
Yeah, he was having a great race, and you have to feel for Anthony Davidson. But again, this situation happens here where they get into a little bit of a collision between the Super Aguri and the Renault, and unfortunately it looks like he just comes off the worst with a little bit of rear suspension damage. I think Anthony during the race commentary said that he's not too sure what happened, and it looked a little bit like a 50-50 situation.
Well, from Anthony Davidson to Anthony Hamilton, welcome once again and congratulations once again. It's a happy ending, a very happy ending to quite a trying weekend, I would think.
Incredible weekend, to be quite honest. I'm surprised my heart held up for most of that race. It was really, really tough, but got to give congratulations to both Kimi and Lewis, and it was a fantastic race, I think, not just for them but for everybody watching.
And what are your feelings about the performance of Lewis today and the composure that he showed today after everything that was going on yesterday?
Well, to be honest, I'm just stunned. After everything that's gone on this weekend, and they matched each other sector for sector nearly throughout most of that race, and what can I say? I just think, I'm in awe of Lewis. I think it's fantastic.
Well, I think we all are. And we talked to him yesterday evening, as you know, and he seemed very concerned and very preoccupied about what was going on inside the team, and a sort of deterioration of relationships within the team. I mean, that might blow over, but how do you read the situation at the moment?
I think for us, the whole thing is over. We've worked too hard and too long to get to Formula One to be worried about, an event. Things happen, you have good days and bad days. Yesterday was a bad day, today was a great day, and hopefully it's a great day not just for us but for the whole sport, because it needs it right now.
And Lewis and Fernando, they're okay?
I don't know, I haven't spoken to Fernando, but Lewis is great.
That's good to hear. It's going to be a terrific battle through the rest of the season, and he's made a few points about what he's going to be capable of
for sure.
Here at the Hungarian Grand Prix today.
Thank you very, very much.
Lewis Hamilton, our winner once again. We'll have more analysis and more reaction to everything that we've seen here in Hungary in just a few more minutes. After all the politics, all the arguments, we've had an outstanding Hungarian Grand Prix and another brilliant victory for Britain's Lewis Hamilton, who stretches his lead at the top of the Drivers' Championship to 7 points. We hope to be talking to Ron Dennis before we come off the air in a few minutes' time. What do you think his mood might be at the end of this weekend?
I think it's going to be bittersweet in some respects because, they come away with a win. They've also come away with a lot of problems that need to be ironed out and some tension what I think they're going to have to try and get to the bottom of. But again, it's all about racing, Steve, and Sunday afternoon they've come away with the golden one, and that's to win a Grand Prix. More points on the cards for the world title for the drivers, but they've come away with no points in the constructors, and that's a valuable thing for them.
Well, talking of bittersweet, Mark Webber finished on the podium at the Nürburgring 2 weeks ago. He finished just outside the points today. We can hear from Mark, who's talking with Louise Goodman.
Mark, tough race for no points.
Yeah, I was hoping that I'll see a yellow flag at the end of the last... we switched our strategy. We thought if we could get some clear air in the from lap sort of 20-ish through to 30-odd, we'd switch to a 3 and give that a go. Those set of primes weren't great in the front, but then we got a slightly better pace the last couple of stints. But I don't think there was much else left to try and race Heikki for a point. That's how it is these days. So I was happy with how I drove, and that's all there was left.
Red Bull are improving. David Coulthard is feeling the benefit of that as well.
And steadily they are getting there, and I think Mark Webber now is coming into his own. He's settled inside the team, and I think they are making some progress with their chassis. We expect a lot more from Red Bull, but I think that will come next season. You've got Adrian Newey there. You've got a lot of people that have been put in for the design side, and that will really come to fruition for next year.
Did you expect to see more from BMW today? Nick Heidfeld conceded to Kimi Raikkonen pretty early on in the piece, and then the challenge was rather non-existent.
You know, I think BMW have done a fantastic job as the season's gone through, but they're just missing that last couple of attempts when it counts in the race. But saying that, the race was pegged for quite a long time with only a 10 or 11 second gap between the BMW and the Ferrari and McLaren of Hamilton. So they're not far away. It's just a bit more work. Come the end of this season, if they've brought themselves to contention at that level, next year they're going to be a real contender.
But just finding that little bit extra is so difficult within the confines of Formula One technology. We can hear from BMW's Robert Kubica right now.
Podium for your teammate, 5th for you. That's a good result for the team.
Yeah, good results for sure for Nick. My race was pretty good. Unfortunately, yesterday problem cost me pretty a lot of positions on the grid, and also less new tires. I have to start with used tire the race, and in fact first laps were very difficult for me. But after first pit stop the pace was really good. I closed the gap to Nick. After last pit stop I was only 3 seconds, but unfortunately I stayed there, and last 5 laps was very difficult because I have no any more tires. But anyway, good pace. It shows that if not yesterday problems, we could finish much in front.
So BMW a podium today for Nick Heidfeld, a 5th place for Robert Kubica, but it's McLaren's day, it's Lewis Hamilton's day as well, taking victory here, and we wait to hear from Ron Dennis in just a few minutes' time. Just before we do that, though, let's take a moment to give you one more chance at the ITV F1 competition. Here we go with that.
We've a fabulous competition prize for you thanks to AT&T Williams sponsor, the Royal Bank of Scotland. It's a trip for 2 to the Italian Grand Prix on the 9th of September. You'll have 2 weekend tickets to the race in Monza with seats in the heart of the action in the central grandstand, 4 nights accommodation in the 4-star Hotel de la Ville in Milan, return flights and all your transfers. Also included is a tour of the AT&T Williams garage from 3 times Formula One World Champion and RBS Global Ambassador Sir Jackie Stewart. Here's the great man now.
For your chance to win a trip to the Italian Grand Prix, all you have to do is answer this question. What nationality is Alex Watts? A, French, B, Spanish, or C, Austrian?
Thank you, Sir Jackie. So the number to call 0901 293 2020 or text F1 plus A, B or C to 63337. Calls cost £1 per entry from a BT landline. Calls from other networks and mobiles may be higher. Text will also cost £1 plus the standard network rate. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines will close 6 p.m. Tuesday 21st of August when satellite viewers can press the red button.
And good luck with that, because the climax of this Formula One World Championship is going to be absolutely fantastic, and we look forward to seeing you for that Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Now joined by Ron Dennis at the end of, well, an interesting weekend. What are your emotions at this moment, Ron?
I'm pretty tired, to be honest. A lot of stress, a lot of pressure, and, you know, a bit of emptiness at the end of an extremely difficult weekend for the company and for the team.
Emptiness for what reason?
Well, you know, what happened yesterday was really unacceptable. We have a very, very strong commitment to parity. This was one of those times where, you know, as hard as you try, and we try very hard. You know, there was a deviation from our plans in qualifying, and that put the team in an extremely difficult position, which has cost us all of the constructors' points today in the event that we don't follow through with our lodging of an appeal. And you know, that matter will be discussed internally tomorrow, and then we will take a view and inform the FIA.
When you say that matter will be discussed, a certain amount of responsibility, I suppose, lies with our race winner today, Lewis Hamilton. How will you handle his end of things?
Well, I don't think either driver is blameless in this situation, and we could have been a little bit more aggressive in handling the situation, but it's not really my style. simple fact was we were under phenomenal pressure in the last 4 or 5 minutes of qualifying, and we timed these things to very small margins, and you only had to see the fact that Fernando crossed the line with less than a second to go to get his fastest lap, which means, that it just shows you that this wasn't a sort of contrived approach. This was just a legacy of pushing the system, our system, to the limits, and sometimes you go over the limits, and consequences are very painful.
Ron, you've dealt with some big name drivers in the past. As a team principal, you've handled this situation before. But for everybody at home, what is the relationship between Alonso and Hamilton?
There's a tremendous amount of tension in the team, and the tension really comes from, understandably maybe, from two guys who are phenomenally competitive and who are currently, heading the World Championship points, and are looking for every advantage they can get in a system which does not generate advantage. And there's frustrations with both of them, and sometimes mistrust with both of them, and it's tough for us, but we will not deviate away from equality. It's the foundation of the company.
It means it's going to be a very interesting few weeks coming up for you and everyone within the team. But the satisfaction you got from Lewis's win today was what?
Well, I'm so drained. It's difficult to have any emotion left. But he did drive well. There was a couple of small things we had to handle with the car, and the position that Fernando had, he got swallowed a little bit by a couple of cars at the beginning and drove well to come fourth. In the end, we had both championships still. We've taken a difficult emotional blow, and we just got to dig deep and emerge from it, and that's what we'll do. But we will not, under any circumstances, favour one driver over the other.
Sure. Ron, thanks very much indeed. You're ready for a bit of a break, I'm sure. I think we've caught up with Fernando Alonso, or at least Luis has, amid a bit of a scrum. Let's hear from Fernando.
Fernando, great fight back. You so nearly made it onto the podium.
Yes, nearly in the podium, but not enough. Probably I was quicker than Nick at the end, but same as it happened with Ralph. You stuck behind them for many laps with no possibility to overtake. So, a difficult race to drive, always behind people, losing downforce, having problems in some corners, but nothing that was a surprise. I think we expect this type of race.
And I sense that the weekend has ended with a bit of respect between Fernando and Lewis.
And there has to be respect between the two guys. You have a world champion, you have a new world champion maybe elect. But I think what Ron Dennis was saying, there will be a decision made this week coming up, and he's a great man of integrity. There will be a decision made again on absolute parity in the McLaren team, and both the drivers will have to respect that.
And Lewis has got some big battles coming up, hasn't he?
Yeah, of course he has, but I think at this point in the season now, he will have to start digging as deep as he's ever dug before, but so will Fernando Alonso, and I think there's a lot of bridges what they've got to build back up again, because in my personal opinion, I think they've broken some bridges this weekend on a personal level. That will have to be reframed.
And the interesting thing is we now go to Turkey, we now go to Monza as well, and Spa, Ferrari circuits in many ways.
I was a little bit surprised by the pace of Ferrari today, and I think as we go into the next few circuits, they may suit Ferrari as well. Let's wait and see. We've got a great battle on our hands, and it's an exciting one.
It's been an extraordinary weekend here in Hungary. Let's just remind you of other sport that's coming up here on ITV. In particular, next weekend, it's the British Superbikes from Croft, round 10 of the championship. Coverage starting 12:30 ITV4, that's next Sunday, moving to ITV1 at 2:30. And then the next Formula One, the Turkish Grand Prix, that's 3 weeks away. Saturday qualifying at 12:30 on ITV1, and the race build-up and race coverage from 12 midday on the Sunday. So it's Formula One summer break, and it's a very timely one, certainly for McLaren, who've got a little bit of team building to do, and especially for Lewis Hamilton, who's extended his World Championship lead, and he needs a bit of a break himself to get ready for the huge battles that will come up for Lewis in the next few weeks. Bye for now.